So hello YouTube friends, in this tutorial we will learn how to use TanStack Query, which was originally referred to as React Query, to fetch, catch and update data in a React application. So instead of writing the repetitive use effect plus logic, TanStack Query gives us a very powerful and a reliable and scalable way to manage our server state. Okay, so you might ask yourself one simple question: why should you prefer working with the TanStack Query of a use effect plus fetch? Now these are the main reasons. With the use effect plus fetch, you manually handle loading, error and success states. You also need to manage refetching and catching your own data. Okay, so you do your own refetching, you do your own caching. Of course, we have that dependency array whereby you put maybe after this change we need a certain data maybe to be refreshed. So but now TanStack Query automatically handles caching, background refetching and keeps your UI updated instantly without extra boilerplate. So by the end of this video, you will know how to fetch post using useQuery, add new post with useMutation, then keep your UI in automatic sync with the server. So without further much ado, let's go directly to our tutorial today. So what I had done, I had now started a certain Reactivate application and I had called it TanStack, but I can now open my terminal. So what I did is npm create vit at latest, then dot. When you click dot, it will be installed on this folder. Then you can just write TanStack, the folder that you want. But now I have already installed that. So one thing we need now to work with is that we need a library that is now going to enable us to work with the TanStack and the React Query. So how do we do that? So we do npm install at TanStack React Query. So when we do this, we now automatically install TanStack at our application and we can now freely work with the TanStack. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open the application with the VS Code. Then after I have opened the application with the VS Code, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the application with npm run dev. So by doing that, I'm going to open the application on port 5173, localhost 5173. So let me just zoom out like that, zoom out, zoom in. So what I'm going to do, I'm now coming now to app.css and I just clear everything. These things are useless, let me just clear them. Then from app.jsx, I'm going to clear everything. Then I'm going to use rafce to automatically render our new component. So let me just clear everything to make sure that we are working with a fresh folder. So if I run, I see app. So we have already successfully done the installations. So I'm going to create a new folder called the components. Now from this folder, I'm going to create two files. Number one, I'm going to create a file to fetch post.jsx. So maybe to lay the foundation, what you are going to do, we are going to be working with the JSON typical placeholder. So JSON, this one. So we are going to work with this dummy API. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the URL like that. I will need it. So let me just minimize that. So what I'm going to do from this, I'm going to import something we call useQuery. useQuery. Then from there, I'm going to say async function fetch post. So this, now we are going to work with this function. We need a function to fetch the post. So I'm going to say const res is equals to await fetch. Then I'm going to drop the URL inside there. Then from here, I'm going to say return res.json. Then with now that one being returned, what I'm going to do simply, I'm going to say export default. So we need a new function now to export. We need export default. Okay, maybe we can just work with a component. We can just use an arrow function here. So I can now say const fetch post, const fetch post is equals to so this one is a component to render the post that we are going to fetch. So I'm going to say const data is loading. Now these are provided directly by TanStack. Then is error or error. So this one is completely destructured from useQuery. Now here we define the key. First of all, the key, because we will need now to do what? We will need now to fetch. What we are doing is, when we are fetching this post, they are being cached before being displayed. So this one is quite different from working maybe with use effect. So we need a key. We need a key so that we know that we have cached, okay, our post using that post. Now this post is a key that points to whatever we have cached. So we can use that key to maybe pull our data. So query refn fetch functions. So we need query function that is fetch functions that way. Now from here, I'm going to check if our component, if our data is still loading. If it is loading, I'm going to return a tag. Then I'm going to lay loading here. Then if we have an error, of course, if is error, I'm going to return p tag. Then p tag, I'm going to say error. From the error, I'm going to say error dot message, that way. Now from here, I'm going, of course, to return something if all conditions meet. So I'm going to say return. I'm going to render a UI component here that is an ordered list. Then I'm going to say inside here we want to map through data. Through what? Through, yes, this data. Now this data is whatever we have fetched. So that data we are going to map it. Then from this mapping we need to, of course, we need a post there. Then of course I can say return li, return li like that. So from here I'm going to return what? I'm going to return post dot title. We just want to render whatever we have done. So that one is quite working. So if I come back to app.jsx and I import what? So I just clear that and I import fetch post. So So I cannot import that one because I have not exported it. So I'm going to export default fetch post. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fetch it here. Fetch, I'm going to fetch the post here. Fetch post like that. And let us refresh and see what has happened with our application. So if I run, you see nothing is being displayed because there's something we have to do. For us to work with TanStack Query, we have first of all to define our provider from the entry file to our system. So what I'm going to do, I'm going directly to main.jsx. So from here I'm going to import some components. I'm going to import one component called QueryClient. Then I'm going to import which is this component, QueryClientProvider. Now this one is an I order component, awk. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull the strict mode, then I'm going to say QueryClientProvider, then I'm going to display that one inside that one. So now this one is a class. So of course you have to define our own object. So QueryClient, that is our object, QueryClient, that is our object. So this object is of new QueryClient like that. Then I'm doing what? I'm doing like that. So const QueryClient is equals to new QueryClient. So from there we can now come here and define the client. Our client is going to be QueryClient. So if I do that and I come here and refresh, what's wrong? Let's see what's wrong. Okay, let's see. Now from fetch post, let's see data. Okay, async function post fetch. Okay, let's do this. Instead of doing this kind of rendering, let's come here and delete it, and then do this. Then we do li, then we do post, of course, post dot title, and of course here we have to define the key. So the key is going to be post dot id, because now when we work with let's now refresh. Something is not working quite very well. So what is the problem? Let's see what is the problem. What is the problem? What is the problem? Let's see. What's wrong? Invalid call. Hooks can only be called inside of the body of a function component. So this could happen for the following. Let's say invalid hook. Type error, cannot read properties of use context. So at 13. So from type error cannot. Okay, let's see where the problem is. So that then okay, let me see from main. Let's see whether everything is okay here. So everything is okay there. So the problems is here. So let's try and see what is the main problem here. So what is the problem? So useQuery, okay, so that one is an error. So what is maybe the problem with this? So is loading, is error, is query key. Okay, so what is the issue? Let's see post. Let's see post. So what is the issue? Export default post. What is the problem? So Let me go to app.jsx. So const post. What is the problem? What is the problem? Okay, query fn, fetch query. Okay, what is the problem? Is loading error message. Okay. So let's do this. Let me just rewrite again this function, then I come back now to app and I clear this. Let's just rewrite again. So const fetch, I'm going to say, let's write it this way, export default. I don't know why. Function, okay, let's say function post. So const data is loading is error. Then of course there is an error there. Of course you are doing destructuring is equals to useQuery. From this useQuery we need to define the query key, which is supposed to be our post. Then from there we need to define the query function, which is supposed to be fetch post, that way. Then from there we need to know if we are still loading, if the data is still loading, the data is loading, we want to return p loading. Want to define a certain preloader that is loading. Then if is error, we want to return error. Then from that error we want to define error.message. Then from there I'm going to return if all conditions work. Let's just return that. Then I'm going to say ul. Then from this ul we want to look through this data. So we need that data to be looked through. We need map. Then from map we want to look through post. Then from post we need to render the ULI tag. Then from here we need post.title. Then from here of course we need something like key. We need a key called post.id. So all of these ones come from here. So that one is the ID, then there is the title. Now let me just zoom. That is the ID, then there is the title. Then what I'm going to do, because everything I see, everything is quite fantastic, let me call it here. Let me call that function from our entry file. I'm going to say post. Then after doing that, I can now come back here and refresh. So you can now see we have refreshed. There was the loading, then that data has been fetched. So there was the loading. You see, there's that loading that comes. But if you have witnessed when you are trying to begin, is that when the loading was happening at the first, it happened for quite some long period of time. Apart from now, you see, now it cannot happen that way because now we have cached the data. So this data is being cached. So this is the beauty of TanStack Query. It makes your dashboard very high performant. So what we are going to do, so we have seen now how we fetch post. So we now define a function to fetch, then we return the post, then we now come and pass through the post through a useQuery so that we can cache them using this key. Now I want to show you about something we call mutations. Now what are mutations? Mutations are the abilities to work with the post, to work with the patch, to work with the delete, to work with the put. And for our now tutorial, we are going to work with the post. So I'm going to define a functionality to do adding of post. So So I'm going to call it add post .jsx. Now this one is a component to do adding of post. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do something. I'm going to say import useMutation from TanStack. Then I'm going to import a useQueryClient. useQueryClient. Then from there, I'm going to say async function. We need async function to do what? Adding posts. So of course this one is going to have a parameter. It's going to be new post. It's going to be an asynchronous function. So I'm going to do what? I'm going to say const res. There's no need of passing that data through try and catch. That is already been handled by useQueryClient. So res is equals to await fetch. Now from this fetch, I'm now going back to our first component. Then I'm going to copy this URL. Then I'm going now to paste it here. Now what happens with the JSON typicode.com is that it offers fake APIs. So you can make a get request, then you can make a fake post request. So we are going to do a post request using TanStack. So we are going to avoid use effect. We are going to avoid this effect. We are going to avoid the fetch logic. So we are going to work with TanStack. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to, of course this one will receive some parameters. Number one is supposed to be the method we are going to do. So the method here, our method going to be post. It can also be a patch, it can also be a put. Then I need headers. Of course we need to work with content type application JSON. Content type application JSON. Content type application JSON. Then from here I'm going to do what? I'm going to say body JSON.stringify. Of course we need to stringify the data. So this body is going to be new post. Then I'm going to do what? I'm going to return, I want the results.json so that you can see the new results. But you need to understand one thing with adding, because what we are simply dealing with a fake API. So what it does is that it will keep on rendering. So let me just continue coding. You will see how that one maybe is demonstrated maybe through what we are going to display. So export the default function add post. Export default function add post. Then what I'm going to say const QueryClient. I'm going to say const QueryClient is equals to use QueryClient. Then we just need that QueryClient, that is use QueryClient. So I'm going to define something called const mutation. Oh, before I continue, I can maybe come here and maybe display a button. We need a button that will be displaying. We need a button so that we can maybe add the post. So I'm going to define here a button. So this button, I'm going to give it a value of add post. Now I go back to app.jsx and I'm going to call that button. I'm going to call it import add post. Now this add post, I should display it here, add post. So it should be like that. This one is a component, it should be like that. So what I'm going to do, let me come here and see. So everything is okay. Our button is here. Let me just zoom. Our button is here. Our button is here. Now this button cannot add any post because we have not added any functionality to it. Now what we are going to do is we are going to give it a function. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to come here now. I'm going to say const mutation. me just const mutation is equals to useMutation. Then from this useMutation, of course, is going to receive something. It's going to receive mutation function. Mutation function is supposed to be add in post, like that. Then from this mutation function, we have defined the mutation function. So of course we need onMutate. OnMutate, what do we want to do? We want to async. New post. Want to async a new post. Of course, this one is an arrow function. Async. Then we need await QueryClient. Await QueryClient dot cancel queries. Of course, we need to define the key, query key. Of course, we need to work with the post that we had defined earlier. Post. I don't know, you called it post or post. It's supposed to be post, of course. It's supposed to be post. Then I'm going to define const previous. I'm going to explain why I'm working with previous post is equals to QueryClient dot get query data, get query data, supposed to be post. Now the reason why I'm working with this get previous is because we need now, after we have added the post, we need it to be displayed. But remember, we are working with a JSON typical placeholder. So what happens is that the moment we do post, it does not actually get posted to JSON typical placeholder. So it's just a fake API. So we need now to get our queries. Then we need now, we need now to come up with a functionality that we are not going to pull this one from JSON typical placeholder, but we are going to have a way that we are going to display our new added post here. So let me show you. QueryClient dot set query data, supposed to be post. Then we need the alt. Then from this the alt, what we are going to do, because we cannot post this data directly to JSON typical placeholder. So what we are going to do is we are going to append that data to the cached value on the TanStack query. So we are actually going to append. So you are going to simulate a typical posting. So let's see how it's done. So I'm going to render our old data. Then I'm going to, of course the new one, we need an ID. This ID is going to be date dot now. We need to use maybe a timestamp. Then we can now cannot display our post. So what you're simply doing is you are simply appending the data to the cached value. So this one was the old value, was the old values of the data. Then of course we have to generate a unique ID. Then we have to render our new post from there. So of course we need to return something. We need to do return previous post. Now we have to do one. We have to check on error. On error, we need something to happen. On error, we need to new post. Don't worry about this, but don't worry about what I'm doing here. If maybe you are maybe finding some difficulties trying to understand. What you have to understand, number one, is that the most important thing is understanding the flow. Then you can work with artificial intelligence. So you can work with ChatGPT, you can work with cloud. But the most important thing, first of all, is to understand how the function works and what we are basically maybe copy pasting from AI. So the most important thing, first of all, is understanding the flow so that you can maybe work with AI properly. So query client dot set query data. Of course, we need first of all to define the new query data to the cached values. Then I'm going to say const then previous post, like that. Then we need now to find out now what will happen if unsettled. So unsettled, we need to return something. We need to say unsettled, we need to say query client query client dot set query data. Query client dot set query data. Of course, we need query key. Query key, we need a query key there. Then of course we can maybe define maybe the query key, which is our post there. So with that one almost done is we're almost done. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a functionality to our button here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say on click, we are going to do what? Mutation dot mutate what? We are going to mutation dot mutate what? Title. This title is supposed to be a new post posted by Dennis Peter Munyao. So what I'm going to do is that we want, when this button is not working, when maybe there is loading, we want to disable it. So I'm going to say disabled is equals to mutation dot is loading. So during loading we need to disable the data, but it's loading, is supposed to be loading, but now I've done a blunder, so I have to copy this one. It has to be outside on click function. Then I'm now coming here and I'm going to define it there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to expand this a little bit. Then I'm going to maybe minimize that. So what I'm going to do is this first function, what it does is adding the post. There's a second function, the second component. Now this one is supposed to do what? This one is supposed to do what? Is supposed now to add a post. Then of course we need now to render the new data. You have to know one thing, that we have not rendered from add post. We have only triggered a functionality that now causes our TanStack now to re-render the data again. That is now the refetching. That is quite different from use effect, which you have to do it manually. So let me just come back here and refresh. What is wrong? Encountered key should be unique so that components maintain their identity across non-keys. Let's see what is the problem. Then let me just come back here to app or JSX, then I can maybe comment that. So this one is quite working very well, so that one is okay. But when I uncomment this, something is not okay. Encountered two children with the same key. Keys should be unique so that components maintain their identity across updates. No unique keys may cause children to be duplicated. Okay, let's see where is the problem. Maximum update. Okay. An error occurred in the add post component. Consider adding an error boundary. An error occurred. So let's expand this. So let's try and see where the error is. So let's debug a little bit. So we try to see where the error is. So of course we have a async function adding post. Okay, so we need this. There's that method is correct. Then content type application JSON. Then body, we need to JSON.stringify new post. Of course we need to return JSON. Okay, that one is quite very well. then constant click on click. Let's see. Okay, I now get it. Now here we need to, because this was the mistake, we need to come here and do this, because we are not dropping it. We need to, because we had messed the lines, we need to do it like that. So you can now see everything is okay. Everything is now okay. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to zoom. So if I do add post, a new post posted, then it's Peter Munyao. So I have added another, I have added another, added another, added another. So you can now clearly see the advantages of TanStack over use effect. Use effect will give you will force you now to do your own caching manually. It will now cause you now to do your own refetching manually, and so why should you do that one manually? So I see that for your work to be much easier, and so that your applications can be very good when it comes to performance, I advise you to work with the TanStack Query. It's not complex, it's simply like you have seen. So the most important thing, first of all, is to understand the flow. So you can follow closely, you can repeat again, understand how it flows. Now after you have understood how it flows, you can correctly work with AI to build very good and